any idea how difficult it is to find hymns in the Unitarian Universalist hymnal that aren't about being empathetic and coming together as one people? It's tricky! Unitarian Universalists place a lot of emphasis on the other. How is this other person doing? How can I help them? How can I focus on others and make the world a better place? And this service isn't really about that. Focusing on the other is great and all, but too often humans, Unitarian Universalists included, focus on the other as a way to avoid taking responsibility for and dealing with our own stuff. In the reading today, we met with someone who was put in a seemingly impossible situation, one in which they appeared to have all the control, yet also no choice. The person holding the rope in the story thought that he was completely stuck because he was focusing so much on trying to change the other. There was one key way he could change the situation. He could change himself. It reminds me of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are 30 plus 12-step meetings here at church every week, which means that 30 plus times each week the Serenity Prayer is said in this space. One sentence with so much meaning held inside of it, whether or not you believe in God. It involves looking at things as they are, seeing all the aspects and solutions, seeing where one can and cannot have an impact, and then doing something about it. My family is really aware of this. For years, my mom was sure that our family would just fall apart if she didn't make sure things went right. She was holding desperately onto a rope with perfection at the end of it. If at family holidays there were dishes in the sink, or the turkey wasn't cooked perfectly, or if people didn't have enough drink options, it would be a fate seemingly as bad as death. If the family didn't present as perfect to the world, if I didn't look nice enough or have the right table manners, or I held mom up when we were already late, it would be a fate seemingly as bad as death. She got it from her mom, who got it from her mom, and so on and so forth. In mom's eyes, our whole family needed to be perfect, and that perfectionism bled out into the holidays, making for a less than happy time. Mom stood resolutely at the top of the bridge, holding on to a massive box of perfectionism that she had shoved our family into, determined that we would look and act right. When I was about 16, my mom found an adult Children of Alcoholics meeting and began to change. She began to see how making sure things went right was not always compatible with being happy. I mean, it's great when things do go right. It's nice to have the willingness to do the work to make things go well. Lofty goals are not a bad thing. And there are more important things than stuff going the way one wants it to. There are more important things than being attached to how someone else behaves. There are more important things than making sure a holiday goes perfectly. It's like a Meghan Trainor song, Let You Be Right, the chorus of which goes, I don't want to fight tonight, I'm gonna let you be right. How important is it? In this moment, do you want to be right or happy? Is this something that you can let go of? Can the rope be seen and happiness chosen instead? Mom saw the rope. All the things that she was holding on to, the rope that kept her and the family from enjoying the holiday, she let go of. She decided being happy was more important to her than being right. And I think about how difficult that must have been for her. For almost 50 years, she had been focusing on doing things right as a way to avoid looking at herself and the changes she could make in her situation. In Adult Children of Alcoholics, she really had to look at herself for what may have been the first time. After that search, she wanted to let go of the things keeping her stuck in one place. So she did. And when those things fell into the river, there was a splash. As her child, I was really resentful that she was changing things. I, like the person in the story, was dangling on the end of her rope with the rest of my family. One of the things she had taken responsibility for making sure was perfect. I, too, went splash when she let go of the rope. Of course, in the story, letting go of the rope results in something much worse than a splash, right? Death. In family systems, probably in your family system, like in mine, like in our church system, like in your work system, the system tells us that if we let go of the rope, if we change things, everything will be a disaster. Everyone will die. We will be bad parents, bad children, bad workers, bad hosts, bad hostesses, bad insert thing here. Because change is scary, and it prompts our worst fears. Probably because change does mean a death of something. In my family, change meant a death of doing things the right way. A death of being perfect. A death of having a perfect child, or even a child who behaves the way we want them to. A death of superiority and ego. In my family, this change was not fun. It felt yucky and awful, and it meant a serious blow to the family's self-esteem. We went splash, and it was not a good time. But looking back, I can see that holding on would have meant a death too. Our family was dying. My mom, and her mom before her, and her mom before her, and to a certain extent me, were holding on to that rope for all we were worth. And it meant a death of our ability to enjoy the holidays. More importantly, it meant a death of unconditional love. Because perfectionism and unconditional love cannot live in the same house. Thinking that you are constantly right and unconditional love cannot live in the same house. Needing other people to behave a certain way and unconditional love cannot live in the same house or on the same bridge. Someone had to change. But I and the family system, the person at the end, we were saying, how dare you change? Won't you please stay stuck with me? If you let go, I will surely die. It takes serenity to accept that other people might not, probably won't, like it when change happens. At least one person certainly won't like this new person you're becoming. It takes courage to look loved ones in the face and say, I know change is scary, and I'm going to change anyway. It takes wisdom to decide to continue changing, to really look at yourself and decide where your boundaries need to be drawn. It takes serenity, courage, and wisdom to look at the ropes you're holding on to and then let go of them. Fortunately, Mom had that reminder. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. The only way for us to be unstuck was for her to be unstuck. For her to hear us asking her to stay stuck, and her choosing to let go anyway. The only way to move on, to walk down the road to that better opportunity in front of her, an opportunity that our family couldn't even dream of, was for her to let go. And all it took was her. When she changed, everything changed. It's not just families. In groups, one person has the power to change things, not by forcing the system to change, but by changing themselves. It is foolish idiocy that tells people to change things by changing other people. You cannot change other people. You cannot make someone stop being sexist or a racist or an asshole. You cannot make your uncle stop supporting a different political party. You can't make other people agree with your opinion about past ministers, God, what color carpeting to get. You cannot change other people, and neither should you try. Changing things we can means changing how we act in relationships by letting go of the other person or thing that holds us back. Letting go of the rope. Letting the need to agree and be the same go, and letting it fall. Let it go splash. Letting go means focusing on ourselves. It means letting the change begin with me. It means starting with the man or person in the mirror. Don't get me wrong, I know this is hard. Especially if the person on the end of the rope is a child or parent. My family knows this pain. My mom started with herself. And with just her letting go of the rope, the whole system went into the turmoil of change. Suddenly people were asking us, where our Christmas card went? The amount of dishes in the sink the day after a holiday was intense. And sometimes people on the street looked at us a little funny when my parents decided to have a short argument right there rather than a longer one later. Suddenly I wasn't sure how my mom would react to a request of mine or to the family being late to something. One time in particular, I was late to meet my parents at an event, and I turned into this giant ball of nerves and dysfunction because I was sure that my parents were standing there, tapping their feet, and coming up with the lecture they were going to give me when I finally arrived. So I hurried my friends along. Oh my gosh, we're late. My parents are going to be so mad. It's going to be terrible. We have to get moving. We have to get going. To my friends' high skepticism. And I was so pissed when we got to the house and my parents were still in bed. I looked like a completely irrational mess. So yeah, there was a little bit of turmoil associated with this whole change thing. There was a good amount of anger and hurt. And on the other side of that change and anger and hurt, we have found family gatherings that are overwhelmingly happy and joy-filled. We are actually better hosts and hostesses now because we know ourselves better. And so we're able to enter into those moments and situations relaxed and prepared for whatever comes. And if things get a little hairy, grant me the serenity, courage, and wisdom. Because 30-some times each week, people stand in these walls and remind themselves to take responsibility for what they can change themselves. And through their choices and actions, maybe even the system. There are a lot of systems in our lives, and probably a lot of people who would love for us to hold on to their ropes. Especially in families. We, like the person in the story, don't choose the ropes that are handed to us. And sometimes we are handed ropes that continue to be held onto well into adulthood. But if we hold on to the rope for forever, then no one's life can move on. One person is stuck holding on to the rope, unable to move forward with their own joys and challenges for fear of what will happen to the person or thing on the other end, who is then also unable to move. So long as the rope is held, then the person holding the rope is not doing a favor for the other person. They're actually holding them back from discovering the next thing in their life. They're letting their fears hold both people back from moving on to bigger and better things. So in the story, the person holding the rope, like my mom, thought they were stuck in a situation. They had something really valuable at the other end of the rope, something that they really cared about. Whatever was on the end of the rope could not be forced to change, could not be wished to change, could not be hoped to change, no matter how much better life would be if they would just change. This does not mean that everything is hopeless or that life is going to be ruined. Once the person on the bridge realized that this system, this holiday, this country, this other person, this event was not his responsibility to change, then he focused on changing the thing he could, his own thinking. And when he changed, everything else changed too. We are part of the relationship, part of the system. When one part changes, everything changes. In churches, in families, in the country, in life, we cannot force other people to change. We can change ourselves, and by doing so, necessarily change the system. By letting go of the rope, we move everything forward, changing how things are done and how we are together. It is your choice. And I implore you to emulate the man on the bridge and let go of the rope. In doing so, you will make a wonderful splash. May it be so.